Let us begin on a Monday morning with Irene's aftermath and what to expect today, beginning with the flooding in Vermont. NBC's Ron Allen is up in Brattleboro. Ron, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Matt. This is usually a sleepy little New England town, and that's a babbling brook normally behind me there, but the water is just raging. It's a good example of what's been happening across the state. State officials have said the flooding is absolutely epic, and they're still trying to get their arms around exactly what's happened here. By one count, there are more than 250 roads that have been blocked. Bridges have been washed out in many places. As we were driving up here last night, we saw a lot of places where you just couldn't get to, a lot of detours in the way. Sadly, there is one fatality to report, a 20-year-old woman who was swept away from a riverbank while she was watching the waters rise with her boyfriend. That's the only fatality we heard about. We also heard of a report of a team of firefighters in a boat. The boat capsized as they were trying to help some people. They had to be rescued themselves. This morning, we were talking with the town manager here this morning. She's out early this morning with her firefighters and police, still trying to assess things. In some places, the waters are still rising, and rising very quickly because these were flash floods. In other places, the waters are receding. The Connecticut River starts up here, heads south. It's about 7 or 8 feet above where it normally is. All those waters are gathering. They go down into Massachusetts, into Connecticut, causing more flooding down there. Here, there are still some people out of their homes. They started evacuating people late Saturday night. But still, in many places in Vermont, all this caught a lot of people off guard because they didn't think Irene would have much of a punch when she got this far north, but she certainly did.
Yeah, Ron Allen. All right, Ron, thanks very much. In Brattleboro, Vermont, hundreds of miles from where Irene made landfall.
Hurricane Irene's aftermath. Almost 5.5 million homes, businesses without power along the East Coast. New York airports reopen, but delays loom. At least 650,000 people are stranded. Floods hit Vermont. Historic bridges wiped out. At least 31 fatalities reported in 10 states. Vermont residents battled epic flooding after the remnants of Hurricane Irene set off the state's worst deluge in more than 80 years, washing out roads, knocking out power, and forcing hundreds of people into shelters. At least one person was taken after being swept into a swollen river in the mountainous, landlocked New England state, which rarely sees tropical storms. Homes and businesses were flooded after 7 inches of rain inundated the state from Irene, which had been reduced to a tropical storm by the time it reached Vermont on Sunday. Floodwaters gushed through downtown Brattleboro, an artsy community of 12,000 along the Connecticut River. On Monday, President Barack Obama signed Vermont's emergency declaration, directing federal aid to supplement state and local response efforts. Along the East Coast, many of the worst effects arose from rains that fell inland, not the highly anticipated storm surge along the shores. High winds also added to the damage by sending trees into power lines, homes, and vehicles. At 8 a.m. Eastern Time Monday, nearly 5.5 million homes and businesses were still without power, the U.S. Department of Energy reported. Hardest hit were New York State, with 938,000, 12% of all customers. Connecticut, with 693,000, 44%. New Jersey, with 693,000, 20%. Virginia, with 615,000, 19%. And, among others, Rhode Island saw 64% of its customers, 274,000 homes and businesses, without power. During the course of Irene, 7.4 million customers lost power, nearly double the outages from the last hurricane to make landfall in the United States in 2008. In Vermont, even though the sun was out on Monday, officials worried that more damage could still be done. The bigger rivers haven't crested yet because the smaller brooks feed into them, said the governor. It means more flooding. We continue to be challenged here. Downgraded from a hurricane as it lumbered up the coast, Irene left millions without power across much of the eastern seaboard, was blamed for at least 31 fatalities, and forced airlines to cancel more than 12,000 flights. It didn't become the big city nightmare forecasters and public officials had warned about, but in more rural areas, rivers and creeks turned into raging torrents, tumbling with tree limbs and parts of buildings. Authorities warned of possibly disastrous flooding in the days ahead in Vermont. The governor said his state was facing a full-blown flooding catastrophe. Overnight, every single road in Vermont, except interstate highways, routes 89 and 91, were closed at one point due to flooding, said a spokesman for the Vermont Emergency Management Agency. And Irene swept through the desolate streets of New York, flooding low-lying areas and leaving millions of homes without power along the eastern seaboard as it continued on to New England. Most New Yorkers emerged from their makeshift bunkers to find little of the widespread devastation the authorities had feared. The storm, which was downgraded from a hurricane shortly before it hit New York City, attacked in a flurry of punches. A police station in Cranford, New Jersey, flooded and had to be evacuated. Firefighters, paddling in boats, rescued more than 60 people from 5-foot floodwaters on Staten Island. New York's major airports were closed, and at least 4 storm-related fatalities were reported in New York State and New Jersey. But after wide-ranging precautionary measures by city officials that included shutting down New York's mass transit network, sandbagging storefronts on Fifth Avenue, and issuing evacuation orders for 370,000 people across the city, more signs. Hurricane Irene is likely to be remembered by New Yorkers more for what did not happen than for what did. Windows in skyscrapers did not shatter. Subway tunnels did not flood. Power was not shut off preemptively. The water grid did not burst, and the rivers flanking Manhattan did not overrun their banks. Still, when the center of the storm arrived over New York City, approximately 9 a.m., winds had reached 65 miles per hour, making Irene the largest storm to hit the city in more than 25 years, even as the bulk of the storm's power was reserved for the suburbs. All in all, we are in pretty good shape because of the exhaustive steps I think we took to prepare for whatever came our way, Mayor Michael R. Bloomberg said at a news conference. Yes, Hurricane Irene was a warning, just like the earthquake that came before it. New York City is being reserved for something else, something much bigger. And all these are more signs of the end times, transition days, which is a time of extraordinary changes, happenings, and events. Everything is connected, and everything is numbered. It's also called fate or destiny, because it's about what kind of world are we leaving to the future generations. Matthew chapter 24, verse 19. And warn to them that are with child, and to them that give nurse in those days. 20. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. 22. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. Revelation chapter 10, verse 5. And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven. 6. And swore by him that lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that therein are, and the earth and the things that therein are, and the sea and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer. 7. But in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he shall begin to sound, The mystery of God should be finished, as he has declared to his servants, the prophets. It's time for all prophecy to be fulfilled, and the time is right now. It's happening.